Okay, here's our guinea pig. We're going to be doing 70-30 from Tubeworks, and then we're going to also install a JTE Boost lock. We have a GSC from Tubeworks, and we also have a Tubeworks forced oil clutch mod that's going in this transmission as well. We're going to whip this thing apart, do an inspection on the gear stacks, modify the cases, and then get into it and put the whole thing together and get it back in the box and shipped to Jay. So let's get after that right now. All right, everybody, we're going to pull into this transmission right now. I'm pretty much going to do this disassembly like I did the Tubeworks video. I'm going to explain some things as we're going along, so that way if you have any questions, some of the questions might be answered right then and there. So this is an SS transmission out of a 2019 Plus, so it's already got some sort of gear reduction. Now, first thing to do is to get the shift actuator assembly off, and then going back together, there's a little bit of a process so that we can properly line up the shift arm back onto the shift shaft and make those two happy, because if they are not where if this arm is off, this will set a diagnostic code for the MCU right away. So to start, 8mm to take this arm off, 5mm to undo the actual actuator bolts. They are quite tough. A lot of the times the Allen will stick in the hex because it's a soft bolt and it takes that much effort to crack them suckers loose. Okay, here we go. And it looks like there's a little bit of red Loctite, so that could be a good reason as well. Back in the earlier days, 17, 18, they didn't really use Loctite to lock that in, but we've seen some episodes where these things will actually fall off. Let's set him aside. We got the actuator on. Let's go ahead and pull the E-clip off of the shift shaft. This is a common area for breakage. It can break. The 3-pedal car guys have a lot of issues with breaking this because you can overexert this and it'll snap right behind the land recess. Okay, so that's there. Let's grab the 8mm and get this torque limiter pulled off. Okay, now, these black bolts, they will have Loctite on them. Okay, set these aside. Get you a small hammer. Go ahead and tap on this lug here, the bolt lug. Typically it breaks away real quick. If not, you can use this lug right here and it comes right off. This is the load limiter. There's a clutch pack in here that limits how much load goes through and out to the front diff. This is when I typically will take all the gasket material off. To have a razor blade handy for that. Let's just go get one. All right. Don't be shy, just get right in there. Start scraping along, be nice. It shouldn't take too much effort to pull this gasket up. If it does, well, you probably need a new razor blade. Just take your time. This is where, you know, cleanliness is next to godliness, if you believe in that kind of nonsense. And a clean gasket surface is going to seal. Now, I typically don't use the gasket material over like a new gasket. I will make it out of silicone. Gray Permatex RTV silicone, Yamaha, those silicones are gasket makers in themselves and do a very good job. There are a lot of new auto manufacturing processes where the machine tolerances are so tight that all you need is a small thin layer of silicone and it'll seal your areas up that you need to keep oil in. So I'm just going across here. Be nice to it, don't gouge it. Now a little bit farther on in the video, we're going to show you, like we showed how in another video, talking about the different gear ratios and the case halves and all that goodness and how to modify them. I'm going to show you how to modify this case to accept Tubeworks' 70-30, which is basically GYTR torque assist gearing. This gasket's coming right off. Well, it doesn't take long, and you'll be moving on to the next steps. Okay, that's good. It's good enough for what we got going right now. So now, got that gasket surface cleared. Don't forget the speed sensor. I put the 5mm somewhere. There it is. I see it. Good looking, everybody. I found it. Okay, get your speed sensor out. And it's got a little metal on it. That's typical because it's got a magnet in it. But not too bad. Set it aside. Okay. Now, for everything that we've got it all done on this side. So now let's just go ahead and roll it over on its back. And bingo, we're now after the clutch cover area. Okay, now get the clutch cover, 8mm. Okay, clutch cover. You'll have 12 bolts, 3 of them typically with washers that'll coincide with an arrow here, here, and here. This trans does not have that, so we will add those. Oh, here's the third one. All right, so now there's a tang right here. Pop it. If it's silicone, it'll come right off. If it's not, you may have to give it a couple taps. Bolts in the valve, not valve cover, clutch cover. This one has an aftermarket recluse. It's going to be a 5mm with the coil springs. Typically, it is not a good idea to have these coil springs in an aftermarket clutch situation with an SS. Mainly being because the slave cylinder on the master cylinder on the car has the spring inside of it that matches the spring rate of the diaphragm spring, and it pushes back on the diaphragm spring. So when you're actually operating a clutch, it doesn't have to deal with a bunch of torque. So the two springs basically cancel themselves out and create an equilibrium. So the little motor just basically has to move fluid back and forth. And with the spring pressure inside the piston of the master cylinder is what helps return all that stuff to the rest position, or with the foot off the clutch. So now we're undoing the coil springs, and 6 of them. They feel pretty light. Don't seem very heavy, so it probably matches or is very, very, very close. Recluse is a company that likes to do research and development. So now let's get that pressure plate off there, and we'll expose the rest of the inner workings of the clutch basket. This is the torque drive system, so it's got a bunch of them the torque drive discs, and then also the steel inserts to help stop all the chatter or wear from the very thin friction discs. So pressure plate, oop, bearings kind of locked up. We can clean that up and get it to work again. Okay, so now we have the plunger, we have a ball, and then a push rod. Let's get the ball. 7mm ceramic ball, or 7mm steel ball. We're going to replace this with a ceramic ball. There we go. Push rod. You want to inspect this end right here for wear because of the ball. If you're dealing with, like, say, the 3-pedal guys and higher spring pressures on the clutch pack, the ball will actually eat into this surface and eat this, weld themselves, the ball together and the shaft, and even the plunger that sits in the middle. So the three items, the plunger, the ball, and the steel shaft, can actually become very damaged from higher pressure rates from different clutch systems. So you got to watch out for that, and that's why we install a ceramic ball in that place. It'll wear the shaft, but it will never weld themselves together. So now here we got the inner clutch hub, outer clutch basket, and this nut here that is typically 1 3/16 inches in diameter in size, but I believe the metric equivalent is like 32. So I just grab 1 3/16 inches. The old trusty Milwaukee, and slowly work that nut off there, because if you do it really, really, really fast, debris tends to build up and you tend to strip the shafts. So it wasn't everything, but I gave it some good hits to make that thing crack free. Let's put that over there. Then, now you got this off, you can't get the case split without removing this coupler. So that's a 7/8 size socket. Might have to put the drive unit back on to hold the shaft from spinning. Now we got all the clutch discs to fall out. No big deal. inner hub done. Let's throw those torque drive discs back in there because I don't want to mess. Okay, with the nut undone for the coupler, just pick the coupler up, set it aside. With the nut undone for the inner clutch basket, just pick him up, set him aside, but there's gonna be a washer that likes to stick on the backside. Grab him for sure. Set the clutch basket in the cover, set that washer in, grab your inner basket, lift up slightly. Now, there's typically gonna be a collared washer behind it, and then the needle roller that falls out behind it. So that's all that's going to be in your outer clutch basket. Then you've got this convex washer. This convex washer is very important for the fact of the matter is, if you reverse it and reverse the whole situation, you lock up the basket and the shaft. So now this shim comes out with the convex in the center up. Can you see that, everybody? Convex center up. This, actually, this outer ring here that touches and is all nice and shiny, touches the washer that's in this, between this bearing. Okay, so that's very important. Set it aside. Okay, so now we've pretty much exposed a bunch of stuff. You're going to want to grab the shift shaft assembly and pull it out. It's just going to lift straight out. Now, there's also going to be a washer that likes to stick to the case. So work your magic, get that shaft out of there, that shift shaft, and then work your magic again and grab that washer, just slide them down. Okay, set it aside. Now, you've got your barrel detent and barrel detent spring to keep tension on it. So just grab a 10 millimeter, whip that sucker off. Watch out, there is a stepped collar behind the arm. So just grab 2 fingers, maybe 3 if you want to get into it. Put it underneath the round of the arm and between the arm where the spring gets loaded. And that'll help make sure you don't drop this entire mess. I've had to fish it out, especially on services. It's not fun. So take this, throw it in your little basket over here. We are now ready to remove the filter, do an filter inspection, and then whip the rest of the case bolts apart to get this transmission split. So let's go after that right now. I need a small extension so we can get around here, and then let's get this filter out and see how it looks. Retaining nut and washer. This is not typical. Someone did this. Alright, let's get our fancy hold the dime by its edge pliers. Give it a slight twist and pull. Okay, so as it is right now, with initial inspection, I see a bunch of debris. Not really metal particles. I see a couple slivers that could be metal particles, like this guy right here. But the rest is just clutch and other nasties. We'll get this cleaned up and put it back in. Set it aside. Okay, so far so good. I have a feeling that by doing that inspection that the health of this transmission actually should be pretty fair. Usually the filters will tell you a ton of what's going on. So now let's swap back over to our 8 millimeter and get our 3-inch extension. We'll go after 5 bolts right off the bat. Those 5 bolts are longer than the rest. Those 5 bolts, I will repeat, the 5 bolts are longer than the rest. This one, this bolt here, This bolt here and this bolt here are the 5. So let's get them out. Okay, with those 5 bolts undone, the 5, I will usually take them and place them in the coupler just because they're separate. There's 5 separate. So now, let's do the rest of the 8 millimeters to get this case half apart. Okay, so this is the rest of the case bolt. Okay, that's all of them. I will leave these separated for cleaning. Okay, so now there's one last thing to make sure to get these case halves apart, and that's this barrel star. You got to make sure that the barrel star is lined up so that the star can pass through the window in the case. After that, you're ready to rock and roll. So I'll take this side of the transmission here with the coupler piece, PTO to the engine, and it's coming. There it is. Okay, so now, oh, there's the washer. I was just going to talk about that. This washer goes on the reverse idler gear up against the case. It sticks. It likes to be a butt. It likes to fall out when you're least expecting it. Expect it. Let's get the rest of the case apart. That washer I was talking about likes to stick right here. So be warned, it will fall out. Watch yourselves. All right, here we go. The guts of the trans, the internals. Either hand, 3 fingers. Reach behind the gear. There's a snap ring, so just pick up. And you can pick the whole mess up. Watch out for the detent. This is important when reassembling the transmission. Set it aside. Now, if you're He-Man, you can pull these shift rails out. There's one. Here's the other. Notice how this fork falls down. Don't worry about him. He has to stay there. But this fork here and this fork here, these two will come out. You'll want to look at both sides of the fork in this area here to look for marks from the gear. If the gear is damaged, typically there'll be what I call eyebrows. Nothing on either side. Shift bosses look good. Shift fork bosses look good. Okay, so now, with those out, you can actually pull the rest of the stack. With your thumb, put it in the hole for the shift fork, grab it and the secondary stack and just lift up. There's your gear stack. All that's left is your shift barrel, oil pump, and middle drive gear. Okay. We're disassembled here. Let's set this guy aside. Let's do our gear stack inspection. Along with our shift fork. Okay, looking good. Nothing there. Nothing funny. Nothing out of the ordinary. Set it aside. So now, let's look at our input assembly. This is where the clutch is after. This is where the clutch is at. So this is reverse. This is 4th gear pinion, 2nd gear pinion, 3rd gear pinion, 5th gear pinion, and 1st gear pinion. You'll want to look at all of these gears, drive and coast, and feel for sharp edges. You're going to notice sharp edges most likely on the drive side, which is going to be the heaviest polish side. And then from there, you're going to look at the dogs. So on this shaft, there's only dogs. There are no gates. So you just look on the drive side. Drive side is actually going to have a side that's machined with a counter ramp. So when the gear slides up and locks into this gear, it actually wants to pull themselves together as power is introduced. So with this inspection, very minimal wear, very if any chipping on the dogs. Nice good slide between 3/4 pinion. If it sticks down here, the shaft is bent. We've seen a lot of that. So we're good here on this shaft. Okay, so now here's the secondary shaft. Secondary shaft is going to have what's called the dogs and gates. The gates are down here on the wheel gears that are free spinning. The slider gear then comes over and interrupts the wheel gear from spinning, and then that wheel gear now becomes the driving ratio in the trans. So as I'm seeing, 3rd gear, which is this one right here, 3rd gear wheel, it's your main gear. I'm seeing very, very, very minimal wear. 2nd gear, here's your other power gear. Very, very minimal wear to the sliding gear and the wheel gear that has the gates. Let's look at reverse real quick. Reverse looks great. Oh my goodness. Okay, so this transmission is very, very, very healthy and just waiting for a gear reduction and cleanup. So let's get that all cleaned up, get the case modified, get the gears changed out, get the JTE Boost lock and Tubeworks clutch hub in there. Okay, we've got the case half cleaned up as best as we can with the brush and the solvent tank and all that good stuff. So this is a 19 plus. The land for 1st gear wheel has already been clearanced enough for 45-15 and 70-30. So this area here and this ridge here does not need to be touched. The only areas that need to be addressed is this area here where this boss is. So we're going to touch this up and give us some clearance so we can slide that 30% middle drive set in here and finish up this build and put it all back together. So we're going to do that right now. we got this ridge pretty much wiped out. You don't want any of this happening so the gear can be here. And then you're going to want to put two eyebrows right along the machine mark right on either side. So I'm going to demonstrate that right now. Alright, there it is. Now, the two eyebrows machined in, and then this ridge completely gone. I might have to remove a little bit more over here on this other side, but that was the template that was given to me by the manufacturer Yamaha when they machined this for the 19 plus gears. So just to be sure, we take our 30% drop set, slide it on in here and make sure we got clearance, and then it looks like we don't, so that's why we do test fits. And then we make our little trims and modifications from there. So it looks like we got a little spot in here, then we have a mark. Mark over here. So now we need a little bit more clearance and everything will be just fine. Let's try it one more time. Okay, that means, you hear that? That means we got a little bit of contact, but that's all right. It's going to give us a pattern for us to touch up. That seems to be right there in the middle. So here we go. Feed it one more time in there and see what we got. to go. Let's get this case half cleaned up, get this gear cleaned up, and the rest of it all cleaned up, and we're ready for reassembly. Okay, here we have the clean case half. We didn't have to replace the oil pump because there was no metal debris throughout the transmission. This transmission was very, very, very clean. So we got the shift barrel in. We've got the detent facing into the neutral safety switch. The next step, since we've cleaned this case after we clearanced, is to now take our 30% drop set and slide that sucker in. There it is. Okay, now we go back and we grab our small shift fork. When we put it back together, you want the knob down. Grab that as one assembly with your finger and slide it in. Boom. It's in. Okay, so now you grab your shift fork rail, slam that home, get your other rail, your other two forks, you come in with the fork with the knob facing the barrel, come in and grab fifth gear wheel and shove it in. Now that's when you know you got it. Now you're gonna probably have to lift it up a teeny bit to get it in the rail guide. Let's do the second rail. Shift fork. Fourth gear slider. Oh, we're not there, so we just need to pick it up a teeny bit and it slides into position. We take our rail, slide it home. So now there's one more component left, and that's our reverse idler gear and shaft. So you go pick that sucker up. Make sure you got the collar with the recess over the snap ring, your gear, and that dang old tricky washer that likes to slip out. So you grab him, make sure the D or the recessed part, the cutaway, is facing this way. You'll know because when you got it right, just so everybody can see, when you got it right, the rail will sit home and you can't spin it. You can't spin it at all. It'll lock out. And the little oil squirters will be facing towards the input shaft. Okay, so there. We got that. We're all in here. It's time to apply silicone to the outer ring, and the outer ring only. I see a lot of people apply silicone all the way out here, all the way out here. That's not necessary. So, truly, you want silicone around this inner edge here and on the inside of the bolts, so when it squashes, it'll get squashed out and seal around the bolt. Okay, so now get yourself a clean rag. You're going to want to clean and address both surfaces on both case halves. Do not apply silicone here or here. It's not needed. These so long as your case halves are straight, you should never need silicone here, never need silicone here. All right, now I'm going to clean up this other case half, and we're going to get some silicone laid down and put this thing back together. Okay, got the other case half clean. Let's line this case half with silicone. We've got our rails in. We should have everything in that we need to seal this whole case up. Remember, no silicone here, no silicone here. Just go around the hole. It's nothing special. You don't have to get crazy. So like I said, so long as you have straight case halves, everything should be just fine. Okay, there you have it. That's all the silicone you need. Doesn't need to be any more. Grab your case off. Make sure all the little bits and chunks and pieces and whatnot are out and gone. Spline your input shaft. Get your middle drive output, and then sometimes the shift barrel will be in the way. So just give it a little rotate. Yeah. Now don't forget to twist this a little while you're getting the two halves together because of the oil pump drive gear. Now I've already gotten it splined in. I just watched it start to turn, so we're good there. And just gently squeeze the case together. You'll know when you're home. Boom. See the silicone starting to squish. Got rotation, rotation. All right, everything's turning. So now, let's get them 5 that we had before. And we'll put one back here, one back here. Oops, one back here. 2, one here. And one here. So grab your impact. All right, now get your other bolts that you set aside earlier. And reline the case with your bolts. there it is. All the case bolts are done. I'm gonna get some torque stripe or some paint pen and mark all this stuff so we have it at least documented that it's been done. Okay, here we go. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and take this old oil filter and set it aside. We have a new oil filter somewhere around here that has that magnetic screen in it and a 5-micron mesh from Tubeworks. Here it is, from Tubeworks. So it's got a magnet, so it'll stop any kind of metal, and then inside is a ultra fine screen to stop any other kind of debris that's finer than that can make it past. Oops. So we got that going on. Thank goodness for that. Let's put that in here. Alright, let's get the 10 millimeter and that big washer that's not typical. I say typical. It's not typical. There's 10 millimeters. So 10 millimeter, zap that in. We're good. Now, let's get this nonsense back in here. We have the shift shaft. That's going to go in with washer that we removed. Just work it in there. If it's new, it should slide right in there. Sometimes they develop a small burr. Okay, that's in. Okay, now let's talk about the detent arm. Okay, detent arm's got the little shim with a washer that's stepped to locate it. Okay, so that has to be down first, then the arm. Oops, and then drop your bolt. Okay, so bolt, washer, all that comes right in here. Run it in, then get your 10. Get that in there. Okay, so now, get a little pick. I have a little pick. Get your detent spring, put it in there. I let it fall down like so everybody can see. And then I'll pick it up, grab the mushroom head, and roll it over. Sometimes it takes once or twice. And it's over. Okay, so that's that. Okay, now your shift mechanism and system is in. Now let's go after the clutch system. Remember that convex washer? Inside up. Here's the outer basket. Here's the stepped collar. Step goes in towards the bearing. So step down in towards bearing. Here's the collar and needle roller. That goes on next. Outer basket. Spline that in. That's splined in. Okay. Next is the washer that's got the two grooves on either side. That goes in between. Okay. Here's where things get fun. Now, we're doing a Tubeworks outer or inner basket. Okay, so here's the inner basket. You got the washer. Slide that sucker in. Okay, you're in. Now, unfortunately, you gotta restack your entire clutch basket. So let's just go ahead and do that now. There's the old basket or hub. Let's just go ahead and start the stack. So when I stack, I go ahead and stack the same. I want to take, this. All right, let's start. Let's take this guy, put it over here, because that's the end of the clutch basket. Okay, so now let's take the steels. There's a stamp, with these Recluse torque drives, they're all sharp, so just start stacking. Usually with the Yamaha discs, there's a rounded edge and a sharp edge. I take the sharp edge and I put it towards the inside, and I take the rounded edge and face it out. That way, when the clutch is trying to disengage, it has as many chances as possible to fully disengage, to remove the power from the input shaft. And that's a big deal. It's very important. A lot of dang discs on this system. so we're moving right along as fast as we can. All right, that's stacked. Now, let's put the nut on, torque it down, and get it staked. Okay, staked. Push rod. Plunger. Okay. Oh, god dang it. Okay, so I did not specify that I had a different pressure plate. So I got a normal fluid dam. This gets removed if you have something like this torque drive. It's okay because the fluid will still be forced through the entire system. It's just the fluid dam is there to ensure full fluid flow. Okay, so now let's get our coil springs back into play. Get our 5mm Allen. Now, it looks like it was missing the dowels. Somebody used the dowels on the other side. No big problem. We're going to get this clutch cover cleaned up. We're going to get all the bolts out of here. And then we're going to get the reusable clutch cover gasket. Oh, wait a minute. We're not using that. What am I talking about? We're going to be using JTE Boost lock. Oh, what's up with that? Furnished by the man himself, John Thomason. All right, let's get this whole setup done because that actually takes a teeny bit to do. So now we have to add a couple things. To make this whole system work. So now we're going to pull this back off and replace the plunger. Okay, to go over to JTE Boost Lock, we must remove this plunger and install the JTE Boost Lock plunger. So now, I need to transfer this little O-ring over to the plunger so everybody's happy with that. All right, here we go. JTE Boost Lock plunger. Yep, we're in. Alright, okay, so now let's thread this whole bunch of mumbo jumbo back on over. Alright, so now I'm going to thread this on top of that, and then we'll put the JTE Boost Lock cover on top of that. Okay? So now, let's get these coil springs back installed real quick. And we'll tighten this all down. Alright, now let's grab our reusable clutch cover gasket. And thread that sucker on. Ooh, doggies, isn't that pretty? I'm going to have to clean these for a hot second. right, there's one bolt. There's another cover bolt. 1, 2, 3 washers. Now, let's get the 8 out. On the 3-inch extension here. Okay, JTE Boost lock is now installed. We've got a few other parts to send with the customer, but after that, this is it. That was all it's installed. So now, let's roll this thing over. Actually, before we get there, let's put the speed sensor back in and check and make sure that everything's going to be copacetic with that in its place. So, okay, so now we have a speed sensor bracket here somewhere. Okay, we have our speed sensor, our bracket, our O-ring, and our bolt. Put that in. Grab your 5mm and run it down. Okay, then, now that this is ready and here, let's go ahead and put the washer and E-clip sharp side out because it's stamped. So one side has it rounded, other side is sharp. Sharp side out. Get your little hammer. Boom. Done. Okay, get your silicone, or you can get your factory cover and put that over. We're going to use silicone. Now, you don't have to go all crazy. It's just got to be on the inside. Just like on the case half. Let's get that piece out of there. All right, just like so. Now, grab your pre-cleaned cover, which mine is, except for the fact I did not scrape the gasket off of this side. So we'll need another scraping device. which is a razor blade. I don't see what happened to the other razor blade, so we'll just get a new one. Just scrape the gasket area like you did with the other one. Shouldn't take a whole lot of effort. You should make sure it's clean. All right, there we go. Slide this sucker on. All right, now, remember how I was talking about the 2 black bolts? Here they are. Those 2 black bolts came from here and here. So you just go ahead and black bolt, all the rest. All right, now that's that. We still need to install the shift actuator and the oiling bridge. So let's go ahead and do that right now. Now the oiling bridge bypasses several 90 degree turns inside the casing. So just by adding this alone, you're cutting out half the turns or half the direction changes. And by doing that, you get better fluid flow and more of it. So undo the two dummy plugs to close that galley off. Leave the washers. Well, actually, no. It comes with 2 new washers. So typically at Tubeworks, when we were building them, I would leave one of the copper washers that was already pre-crushed. All right. Okay, here's one. It's going to be a 14 millimeter or 9/16. Oops. Well, there we go. Same thing with this side. 14 millimeter, 9/16. But being that this is metric, it's going to be 14 mil. Okay, that's that. Now, let's do a bench test first. Let's make sure we do a bench test to make sure that this thing is going to shift through all the gears. Right now it's in gear. Actually, it is not in gear. It's in neutral. Let's throw a mock shifter on here. And up is going to get us into first. And then revert. Wow, that's actually second, third, fourth, fifth. Excuse me. So fifth, fourth, third, second. And then reverse. First, second, third, fourth, fifth. Okay, everything's working out. Now, shift actuator. Shift actuator's got to be hooked up with this hole in the arm lining up with the hole in the body. You do this here, and then you line the dot up on the arm with the line that's scribed in the shift shaft, and everything should be happy. So, guy up. There's a line that's scribed right here that goes this way. I'm gonna grab a Sharpie to show. Actually, let's paint pen that. This is the line that's scribed in the shift shaft. So then, there's a dot right here. Just go ahead and line that up. Put the bolt in. Don't forget your Loctite. Install bolts. Dang. All right, and there you have it. There's a few goodies that need to go back with this transmission for the JTE Boost lock. We got all these goodies. They're going to go back along with a GSC. There's a GSC that is programmed for 70/30 and this setup. So here it is. J Douglas. Here's his transmission. All done in its entirety. Thanks for joining us, everybody. That's been this episode of TJPtoo Solutions.